Historians traditionally begin their discussion of the United States women's suffrage movement with the Seneca Falls Convention, led in 1848 by women's rights advocate and abolitionist Elizabeth Cady Stanton. The convention's manifesto, the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions, was primarily written by Stanton and designed to echo the power and principles of Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. Due to its inspirational content and elegance, it soon came to serve as a framework for the women's suffrage movement. Following the convention, Stanton, most often with the assistance of her longtime friend Susan B. Anthony, served as a leader of the liberal branch of the suffrage movement for decades. But, dying in 1901, she never lived to witness the ratification of the 19th Amendment.
The Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one portion of the family of man to assume, among the peoples of the earth, a position different from that which they hitherto have occupied, but to one which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to such a course. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator and certain inalienable rights, that are among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of those who suffer from it to refuse allegiance to it and to insist upon the institution of a new government, laying its foundation upon such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their happiness and safety. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman, having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable rights to the elective franchise. He has compelled her to submit to laws in the formation for which she had no voice. He has withheld from her rights, which are given to the most ignorant and degraded of men, both native and foreigner. Having deprived her of this first right of a citizen, the elective franchise, thereby leaving her without representation in the halls of legislation, he has oppressed her on all sides. He has taken from her, if married, all her property, even to the wages she earns. He has made her, if married, in the eye of the law, civilly dead. In the covenant of marriage, she is compelled to promise obedience to her husband, he becoming, to all intents and purposes, her master, the law giving him power to deprive her of her liberty and to administer chastisement. He has so framed the laws of divorce as to what shall be the proper causes, and in the case of separation, to who the guardianship of the children shall be given, as to be wholly regardless of the happiness of women. The law in all cases going upon a false supposition of the supremacy of man, giving all power into his hands. After depriving her of all her rights as a married woman, if single and owner of property, he has taxed her to support a government which recognizes her only when her property can be made profitable to it. He has monopolized nearly all the profitable employments, and from those she is permitted to follow, she receives only scant remuneration. He closes against her all the avenues to wealth and distinction which he considers most honorable to himself, As a teacher of theology, medicine, or law, she is not known. He has denied her the facilities of obtaining a thorough education, all colleges being closed against her. He allows her in the church and in the state, but a subordinate position, claiming apostolic authority for her exclusion from the ministry, and with some exceptions, from any public participation in the affairs of the church. He has created a false public sentiment by giving to the world a different code of morals for men and women, by which only the moral delinquencies which exclude women from society are not tolerated, not only tolerated, but deemed of little account in men. He has endeavored in every way that he could imagine to destroy her confidence in her own powers and to lessen her self-respect and make her willing to lead a dependent and abject life. Now, in view of this entire disenfranchisement of one half of the people of this country, their social and religious degradation in view of the unjust laws mentioned above, and because women do feel themselves aggrieved, oppressed, and fraudulently deprived of their most sacred rights, we insist that they have immediate admission to all the rights and privileges that belong to them as citizens of the United States.